So between 24 and 2013, Nintendo's handhelds weren't just, consoles. They were test labs for imagination, like I said in part 1. The Nintendo DS launched in 2004, and its successor, the 3DS, which launched at 2011, arrived in an era when big budget gaming was increasingly risk-averse and obsessed with realism. In contrast, these modest devices prioritized novelty and fun over raw power, giving developers an affordable canvas for really wild ideas. Nintendo explicitly pitched the DS as a developer system, a low-cost alternative to the expense HD consoles of the time. With the DS, even smaller studios could create compelling games at a fraction of the usual budget, and breaking even might only require tens of thousands of sales instead of millions. In other words, experimentation wasn't just encouraged, it was economically really viable, and as one industry analyst noted, developers often planned for break-even points well under 500,000 units, and sometimes even less than 100k copies or fewer, which was realistic on the DS. And this low-risk environment, coupled with Nintendo's willingness to let unconventional projects flourish, fostered a culture where weird was actually really good, and asking why not became a valid design philosophy. Much of the creative explosion was driven by the DS hardware itself. The device famously introduced distinctive new features to handheld games: 2 LCD screens, a bottom one and a touchscreen one, a built-in microphone, and support for wireless connectivity. The DS even retained a Game Boy Advance cartridge slot for backwards compatibility, which clever developers repurposed for additional functionality in new games. Every new feature was a creative dare. If we look at a dual screen, developers had 2 displays to play with. Some games used the extra screen purely for maps or menus, but others really went further. For example, in Hotel Dusk Room 2015, I by the way talk about this one in part 1, which was by the way made by Studio Ching, made players hold the DS sideways like a book, with one screen showing the character's notebook and the other showing the world, literally turning the DS itself into a detective's notepad. Also, in The World Ends With You, Square Enix used both screens for combat, and the hero battles on the touchscreen side while a partner character fights on the top screen, forcing players to split their attention in a brilliantly chaotic dual screen system. And this kind of dual screen gameplay was really unique to the DS and 3DS only, and became a hallmark of innovation. Also, the resistive touchscreen and the stylus input unlocked entirely new game mechanics. In Trauma Center Under the Knife, for example, players perform virtual surgery with the stylus, making incisions and sutures in real time, something that would be impossible on button-only consoles. Puzzle adventures like Another Code, Two Memories, and Professor Layton lets players directly manipulate clues with touch. One standout was Etrian Odyssey, which was made by Atlas in 2007, a dungeon RPG that not only displayed the map on the second screen, but also lets players draw their own map with the stylus, evoking old-school craft paper mapping while serving gameplay. Amazing, very amazing. And in Time Hollow, the touchscreen became a window to time. Players literally drew, circular hollow portals on the screen to peer into the past and change the story's outcome. Like, do you see those things in modern gaming? Because I haven't seen it in a while. By the way, the microphone, it has a built-in microphone which invited games to listen to the player. For example, the biggest example I can give you is Nintendogs, which had players call their puppy's name aloud to train it. Puzzle games included gimmicks like blowing into the mic to extinguish on-screen candles or solve puzzles. WarioWare Touched featured microgames requiring the player to shout or blow at the DS, and these novel mic interactions were often playful and made the gaming experience feel more tactile and personal. I remember my mic being broken and I couldn't proceed. I couldn't see the end of Diabolical Box because there was one riddle where you had to blow into the mic to open, the box. I wasn't able to do that, and I was stuck at that forever until 2021, where I played it again and I could see the end. Okay, I don't think it's like that big of a thing, but it's worth pointing it out, which is wireless and social play. The DS local wireless and later Wi-Fi connection meant developers could experiment with multiplayer and connectivity. Tetris DS in 2006 showed how transformative it was to have a handheld that could go online playing classic Tetris against distant players, which felt really revolutionary on a portable device. But every console has Wi-Fi, of course, and multiplayer. But the way how they use it is also another thing. For example, local wireless also enabled quirky features. For example, in Dragon Quest IX, which was made in 2009, used a tag mode that would quietly trade treasure maps with any DS owners you walked past in real life, which I would say is an early forerunner of the Street Pass concept. The sheer mainstream success of the DS, 154 million units sold, meant even niche ideas could find a community of players. Many games supported single cartridge download play, letting friends join multiplayer minigames with only one game copy, which is perfect for, spur of the moment spontaneous fun. By the way, moving on, the secondary slot was also very cleverly used by a few games to enhance gameplay. For example, Metroid Prime Pinball shipped with a rumble pack that plugged into the GBA slots to provide force feedback. Guitar Hero on Tour came with a frail board adapter that turned the DS into a tiny guitar, strumming via touchscreen with finger-pressed butt in the GBA slot. And also in Japan, you had the Jam with the Band, which had a expansion pack on a GBA card adding extra songs. And with a cherry on top of it, and in a truly esoteric twist, Konami hid a surprise for retro fans, which was like, if you inserted the GBA game Gambari Goemon while playing Goemon Mystical Ninja DS, it unlocked a classic MSX era shooter on the DS as a bonus. And these odd uses of the GBA slot exemplify the anything goes spirit of the era, if I phrase it correctly. In short, the DS hardware was a toy box of new inputs and possibilities. Nintendo deliberately kept the device modest in specs, but very, very rich in features, and betting that innovative gameplay would matter more than high-end graphics and, being able to see every tiny pixel of someone's face. And that bet really paid off, because developers, even large and small, took these hardware features as invitation to innovate, resulting in games that felt genuinely fresh. And because the hardware encouraged unorthodox design, the DS and 3DS era became a golden age of oddball games and genre-defying experiments. Developers really went, full crazy mad scientists with game concepts, and many of these experiments became cult classics. Consider a few standouts from this era. We're gonna start with Elite Beat Agents, which came out in 2006. It's a rhythm game with a heart, and you play as a team of secret agents who solve everyday people's problems by dancing and cheering them on. Very weird, but players tapped and swiped in time to pop songs on the touchscreen, while on the top screen you have zany comic book stories unfolded, from helping a lost puppy find home to resurrecting a dead father's spirit through the power of music. And it really sounds absurd, but Elite Beat Agents was equal parts, goofy and moving. Very, very moving, if I have to say. One famous level which is a Christmas gift, and it involves a widow coping with the loss of the family's father. And as the agents dance, the father's ghost actually appears. to comfort them. Very sweet, really heart moving, and this sequence is so unexpectedly emotional that many players admit it brought them to actual tears. Not me though, not me. I don't cry. And while it doesn't really have to do anything with the actual mechanics of and hardware of the DS, it still shows you that developers were really being able to actually experiment with game concepts and without putting too much on the line. I already talked about Time Hollow, so if you wanna see what I have to say about this game, check the part 1, please. It's on my channel and it's easy to find. Let's move on to Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, which came out in 2010. It's an ingenious puzzle story hybrid from Capcom, and you play as Sizzle, a ghost trying to solve his own murder before sunrise. And as a spirit, you can possess inanimate objects and flicking a light switch, or rolling a card, opening an umbrella to indirectly influence the living world and save people from danger. Entire levels are structured around Rube Goldberg-like contraptions. For instance, you might jiggle a lamp to lure a cat, or drop a crossing gate at the right moment to change someone's fate. The game essentially told a ghost story through the manipulation of lamps, ladders, fans, and much more, turning mundane objects into keys for clever puzzles. Critically acclaimed for its witty writing and lavish animation, Ghost Trick is often cited as one of the most inventive TS titles. Also, I really cannot forget about this game, Contact. Also, I'm talking about this in the first video, so I won't be, talking about this one, as, there's a time limit and I wanna really move on. Okay, so I think this is the most famous one of the DS era, which is The World Ends With You, and it's a stylish action RPG that fused real-time combat with street fashion and existential angst. And I really like how the characters look. Like, you have the main character with their very dramatic jackets and really great clothing. I really like the fashion of the characters. It's co-developed by Square Enix and Jupiter, and this game epitomizes DS innovation. It leveraged every DS feature, with the fast-paced, stylus combat on the bottom screen, simultaneous battles on the top screen controlled by button presses, a psyche pin system where equipping different collectible pins gave you new touchscreen attack, and even a mechanic where a game could detect if you hadn't played for a while and reward you with power-ups, and even a mechanic where the game could detect if you hadn't played for a while and reward you with power-ups, which is a nod to the handheld lifestyle. Unconventionally, the game is set in modern-day Shibuya, Tokyo, and really drenched in youth culture. Your gear and clothing brands affect your abilities based on their popularity in each area of the city. The soundtrack mixes J-pop, rock, and hip-hop, and the themes delve into identity and isolation. Critics really praised The World Ends With You as a mess of innovative ideas, stylishly combined into a beautifully presented package, calling it an RPG that's every bit as unique as the person who plays it. And that is actually really rare for a game. I mean, when I read that, I was like, okay, this might be really very unique, and I'm left speechless. But I think, without saying anything, that's enough to tell you how actually unique it is and how actually it can present the DS as how innovative the hardware can be. And these examples barely scratch the surface, in my opinion. For every famous Nintendo DS title, there were dozens of oddball experiments thriving in the system's library of the 2,000 plus games. There were brain training games There were brain training games, cooking simulations, visual novels, strategy epics, and things that defy description. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney found a worldwide audience on the DS, proving that players would indeed play a lawyer simulation with anime aesthetics on a handheld, and really great. I bought a trilogy for the PC, and I'm still playing the Phoenix Wright X Professor Layton game, and it's my first game, with Phoenix Wright, and it's really good. It's amazing. Niche genres like point-and-click adventures, 2D shoot-em-ups, and turn-based strategies, which were becoming rare on home consoles, but got a new life on the DS. As one retrospective blog puts it, the DS was a weird little console that achieved unprecedented mainstream success, which in turn allowed weird and wonderful games to actually really flourish. And even Nintendo's own titles were experimental. Look at WarioWare, Nintendogs, Brain Age, Paycross 3D, Rhythm Heaven. None were graphical powerhouses, but all were brimming with fresh ideas that made creative use of the hardware. And one thing was actually very crucial for this, golden age to actually happen, and that was Nintendo's philosophy and encouragement. Unlike Sony or Microsoft, who chased bleeding-edge hardware and multimedia capabilities, Nintendo, under the leaders like Satoru Iwata, took a different path. They deliberately built devices that were, relatively modest hardware but had unique interactions, betting that developers would find their fun in those hardware. Nintendo likes experimenting to get the most possible fun out of the hardware. As a Guardian analysis in 2023 noted, the company was not afraid to be seen as unconventional or even underpowered, but they famously declared that it had stopped competing on graphic specs in the mid-2000s, focusing instead on novel experiences. And for the DS, Nintendo fostered a developer-friendly environment by calling the system a developer system. And they signaled an open invitation to creators to use our toolbox and go nuts with it. And the DS and also later the Wii were pitched as platforms where mid-sized studios could thrive without astronomical budgets. And this willingness to fail now and then on Nintendo's part, willingness to fail now and then on Nintendo's part, accepting that not every experiment would be a hit, created a culture of risk-taking. As long as the game was fun or novel, it had a shot on the DS, and Nintendo also contributed their own wild ideas. For example, Electroplankton. And Nintendo's president Iwata had said that the DS was developed to provide players with a unique entertainment experience for the 21st century, explicitly hoping to move the company away from any, conservative image. And the result was a handheld that embodied the mission. It wasn't just indie or unknown developers taking Nintendo up on this offer, but also many major publishers, as you can see, used the DS as an outlet for their creativity that might not have been possible on other consoles like the PlayStation or the Xbox. For example, Capcom gave us new IPs like Ghost Trick, Ace Attorney. Square Enix, aside from juggernauts like Dragon Quest IX, experimented with games like, as you can guess it, The World Ends With You, correct, and quirky spin-offs like Children of Mana, Mario Hoops 303. Even companies like Sega with Feel the Magic XYXX was a bizarre launch window game utilizing every DS feature to tell a love story through mini games, not even mini games. That's a very great way to describe a love story. Maybe the minigame was trying to hold hands, or you had to think, I'm doing too much. You also have Konami, which had Lost in Blue, and don't forget the Cookin' Mama series. they jumped in with these experiment titles. And according to one analysis, in the DS era, the biggest developers and publishers in the world were inspired by the hardware to get, a little crazy with their concepts. And this meant that the experimental game design wasn't confined to a niche. It was happening at the heart of the industry alongside blockbuster franchises. The same source nostalgically notes that this crossroads between inventive design and world-class aesthetics that made the DS era truly special. And they're right. Another thing which was also very important, for the reason why there are these many games that are very weird is how affordable development and distribution were on the DS and 3DS, especially compared to today. During the mid-2000s, developing a game for Xbox 360 or the PS3 in HD could cost tens of millions of dollars for AAA titles, and even a mid-range game might need 1 million sales to profit. Meanwhile, on the DS, budgets were an order of magnitude lower. A high-end DS game in 29 might have a budget around, $0.5 million, and many of these games were made for far less. Japanese publisher Marvelous estimated in 2010 that even a top-tier DS title costs at most 44 million yen, which is around $0.5 million, whereas a 3DS title could cost triple of that, and an HD console game many times more. And with game costs in the hundreds of thousands rather than tens of millions, a DS game could sell 50,000 copies and still break even. Okay, so let's say the budget is $250,000 and approximately a DS game went for 30 or 35 bucks. Now if you $30, let's say $30 times 50,000, that would be $1.5 million, and that's more than enough to cover the whole budget. So now we have the calculating out of the way. In fact, several niche DS series thrived with relatively small sales. Etrian Odyssey's dungeon RPGs or the Trauma Center games never sold huge numbers, but they were profitable enough to keep new entries coming. And one forum that was posted in 2015 summed it really good up. So I'm gonna quote it right here. I'm gonna read it. Y'all ready? Alright, here I go. These kinds of sales, a few hundred thousands, are what most successful games that aren't heavyweights achieved. Small experiments from larger studios or indie developers often plan their break-even to be well under 500k, sometimes 100k or 200k. That describes the DS market well. Success didn't require every game to be a blockbuster, not at all. This breathing room allowed for diversity and risk. Let's say I wanna make a crazy game for the PlayStation 5. Well, that requires a shit ton of money, as you know. So if the CEO has to choose between my crazy concept that is completely new or a new, I don't know, a God of War, Last of Us, or something like that, they would go much faster for the known game that they know that the series really works and will get them money in.